You talked a lot about the WHO, and I was wondering, Dr. Fauci had discussed them earlier, so if I could ask you a question about...
Well, he respects the WHO, and I think that's good, and he's worked with them for a long time. But they did give us some pretty bad play calling.
They've also, I think, given lots of countries in the world accurate coronavirus testing that's been central to your guys' data modeling. And so
That I don't know. I can only say that with regard to us, they're taking a lot of heat because they didn't want the borders closed. They called it wrong. They really called, I would say, every aspect of it wrong.
So it's
until
the funding freeze
I'm
does
not happy about it. Look, we fund it. Take a look. I mean, go through step by step. They said there's no big deal, there's no big problem, there's no nothing. And then ultimately, when I closed it down, they actually said that I made a mistake in closing it down, and it turned out to be right. But at the time, they did that. So we're just going to take a look at it. We fund it, and they seem to be, I said recently in social media, I said they seem to be very China-centric. That's a nice way of saying it, but they seem to be very China-centric. And they seem to err always on the side of China. And we fund it, so I want to look into it. Yes, please.
Thanks. A quick follow-up on that. So is the time to freeze funding to the WHO during a pandemic?
No, maybe not. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but we're going to look at it.
You did say that.
We give a tremendous, no, I didn't. I said we're going to look at it. We're going to investigate it. We're going to look at it. But we will look at ending funding. Yeah, because you know what? They called it wrong. And if you look back over the years even, they're very much, everything seems to be very biased toward China. That's not right.
I wanted to follow up. You talked about African Americans and how they've been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus.
Seems to be, unfortunately.
Do you plan on requiring the CDC, any federal agencies or state agents, public places doing tests and private companies doing tests to collect that data on the race of the people being tested and the race of the people being treated and the outcomes?
Well, we're just seeing tremendous evidence that African Americans are affected at a far greater percentage number than other citizens of our country, because we're dealing with our country. Now we're looking at it from a worldwide standpoint. Tony Fauci is looking at it very strongly, but these numbers have started to come out, and they're very strong, and they're pretty obvious. I mean, you're talking about...
You will release that
publicly. Would you like to
publicly?
talk about that for a second, please?
I think one of the things that we're going to be doing with our Medicare data is to do that analysis. We're going to look back at the last month or so and look at, related type illnesses going forward. We now have a code for coronavirus, so we can actually stratify by demographic information, so we can look at race as a factor. We can also look at what the underlying health issues are as well. So we'll be providing that data very shortly, but we will be doing that analysis.
We're working on that very hard. This is something that's come up over the last, I hadn't heard this, and then over the last few days, this has come up more and more. And I don't mean by a little bit. I mean many times. It's a real thing. Now, we want to find cures, we want to find therapeutics, we want to find vaccines, because that will solve everybody's problem. But why is it that the African American community is so much, numerous times more than everybody else? And we want to find the reason to it. And Dr. Fauci, Seema, both of them, and others are working on this. And they're going to have very good, I would say in less than a week, I think you're going to have very good statistics. Couple of days.
Something specifically aimed at those communities that are being hard hit, those black communities.
Well,
that
we're
are being
helping
hard
them
hit.
a lot. But what's happening is we're trying to find out why is it that it's 3 and 4 times. Now, maybe that's not going to be the final number, but why is it 3 or 4 times more so for the black community as opposed to other people? It doesn't make sense, and I don't like it. And we're going to have statistics over the next probably 2 to 3 days, okay?
Mr. President.
Please. In the back.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question on behalf of myself and a colleague who couldn't be here due to social distancing. Thank you.
Who are you with? Who?
With Hearst Newspapers. I'm the print cooler today. Thank you. Some banks are only providing Paycheck Protection Program loans to clients with whom they have existing banking relationships. And you spoke to banking CEOs today. I wonder if you'll ask them, these lenders, to accept applications from all small businesses,
Sure.
not just the businesses with whom they have existing
Okay, they'll be doing that,
relationships.
but we're also working with small community banks, so they will be doing that. It's a question I've already spoken about. I mean, in many cases, they have long-term relationships with thousands of companies. I was amazed to see how many, you saw the number of applications. It's hundreds of thousands. It's a lot of work. But I did ask that question, and they are working on that. Yeah.
Thank you. And my second question from a colleague is Congressman Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Northern Virginia, told the local DC CBS station that you personally requested the CARES Act stimulus bill be stripped of $25 billion for the Postal Service. Connolly claims that unless the USPS gets that $25 billion, the agency will be run out of money by June. He accuses you of hastening the demise of the Postal Service. Could you respond to that, please?
I'm the reason the Postal Service has lost billions of dollars every year for many, many years. I'm the demise. This is the new one. I'm now the demise of the Postal Service. I'll tell you who's the demise of the Postal Service are these internet companies that give their stuff to the Postal Service, packages, and I don't know why they're not, I don't run the Postal Service. You have a group of people, so-called independent people, and they run it. But these packages are, they lose money every time they deliver a package for Amazon or these other internet companies, these other companies that deliver. They drop everything in the post office. They say, you deliver it. And if they'd raise the prices by actually a lot, then you'd find out that the post office could make money or break even. But they don't do that. And I'm trying to figure out why. These are independent boards. They were appointed by other administrations. They're sort of long-term. They're there for a long time. And I've been talking to them also. You can look it up. Take a look. They have to raise the prices to these companies that walk in and drop thousands of packages on the floor of the post office and say, deliver it. And they make money, but the post office gets killed. Okay? So they ought to do that, and we're looking into it. And we've been pushing them now for over a year. And you know that because you've seen the stories. I'm pushing them. It's not fair for them to these great, wonderful modern companies. They walk into our old post office with all these routes that could never be built. You could never build them. They go into areas that you could never do. And they say, here, deliver this. And they lose a lot of money per package. And they have to raise their prices. But this Postal Commission doesn't do it. Now, we just got a chance to appoint a couple of people onto the commission, as I understand it, and that's good. But they have to raise their prices, otherwise they're just going to lose a lot of money. And tell your Democrat friend that he ought to focus on that, because if he focused on that, he could truly save the post office. Post office has been losing billions of dollars a year for many, many years. And have him take a look at that, because that's the way to solve the problem.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Mr. President, you say this week will be very painful, very difficult, but a few weeks ago you say this was just like a flu. What have you learned?
I didn't say 2 weeks ago it was a flu.
The question is, Mr. President, what
Excuse
have
me.
you learned that
Ready?
you could offer as an advice to
You are watching Whool Television HD. Stay connected.